India's largest car maker, Maruti Suzuki, has launched the all-new Alto K10 at a price of nearly 4 lakhs. Since its debut in the Indian market in 2000, Maruti has sold over 43 lakh units of the Alto. First, let's take a closer look at the all-new car.
Well, Maruti Suzuki has launched its all-new Alto K10, and remember, Maruti has done away completely with its predecessor Alto with respect to the design, the all-new design and all-new freshen-up look. If you look at these lights, the honeycomb lights and all-new refreshed looks with this all-new air intake mesh gives you really a feeling of a smiling car. Coming on to the features, the aerodynamics have been designed quite well, completely departing from the previous designs. If I give you a quick peek into how the interiors look like, if I can ask my camera person to quickly go inside and give you a sneak peek view of to how the gear looks like, how the infotainment system looks like, the steering wheel looks like, the odometer looks like. So clearly all new freshen up design by Maruti Suzuki out here. If I can quickly give you a sneak peek towards its back side of the vehicle, the rear side of the vehicle has been kept extremely clean by Maruti Suzuki. The roundish circular and of course a little bit of squarish pattern has been kept aside for the rear. Remember, for 20 years this vehicle has been a game changer for Maruti Suzuki, because Alto has been a game changer for Maruti, and nearly 70% market share Maruti Suzuki enjoys with respect to the Alto. So clearly in times to come, this vehicle would be a game changer for Maruti Suzuki, because remember, as far as the Alto and the hatchback segment goes, Maruti Suzuki will always be a leader as far as giving its competition, especially in the pricing, launched at about 3.99 lakh rupees.
In fact, Chetan also caught up with Shashank Srivastava, Senior ED at Maruti Suzuki, to talk about the new launch and outlook for festive season. Listen in.
Tell us about this car, sir. What envisioned you to bring this vehicle at this point of time? Was it because the festive season is coming up and you really want to rear up the consumers' interest and sentiments?
Actually, not really the festive season, because as you know, car design and development takes almost 3 to 4 years. So this would have been planned 4 years back, so not exactly for the festive season. Regarding the segment itself, this segment, by the way, is a very large segment. It's almost as big as the SUV segment. And Alto is the number, as you saw in the presentation, 16 consecutive years #1 car. It's now also last year it was at #4. But you must remember that the top 4 cars in the industry are still hatch. So the hatch segment is very large. It's about 11.5 lakh. So very large segment. Maruti Suzuki has a market share of almost 70% in that segment. So obviously we have a very big stakes in the segment. And I also believe from economic logic that it's very important to grow the segment, because India is a very young demography. 65% of the people less than 30 years of age, which means that a lot of people will come into the workforce. They would require transportation. In India, public transport is not so great, so personal transport will always be required. It's only a question of how affordable you can make it. So in that sense, the entry hatch segment is a very important segment. That's why we introduced the new Alto here.
Two things in particular. Pricing has been kept very competitive in respect to the competition to this vehicle. I would like to ask you, at 3.99 lakhs, do you think the consumer sentiment for hatchback segment will again start to rise? Because I know there are people who still go for the hatchback segment. Not everyone can afford an SUV, but yes, do you think with this launch, do you expect to garner a good amount of market share for the entry-level hatchback segment?
Yes, so definitely. So as I mentioned, we have a 70% market share in the overall hatch segment. In the entry hatch segment, our market share is 90%. So the scope for increasing market share is a little less. However, the volumes should come in. So the thing is whether we can expand the market of this segment. And I believe it is possible, because as I just explained, the basic economic logic about Indian demography and the requirement for transportation, and as the economy bounces back, and it is bouncing back, we would expect a lot of demand in this segment as well. And with this K10 option, you are actually given another good option to the consumer. By the way, Alto last year sold more vehicles than any SUV in the industry. Yeah, so the last year Alto sale was about 146,000. That's more than any SUV sale in the industry. So it's a good, important segment, and we expect it to grow more.
So what are the bookings that you've received for this vehicle as far as bookings are concerned, and how are you planning to channelize the availability of this vehicle? Because you would definitely expect that the festive season would be a good buyer for this vehicle. How are you managing with the backlog of the bookings for this vehicle in particular, and how about the other things, sir?
Yeah, so we are getting, as I just mentioned, about 200 cars booking for this Alto every day. We just started about four days back the booking, just before the holiday period. We expect the bookings to go up now. Regarding the availability during the festive season, in view of the large pending orders that we have, the pending orders are actually model-wise quite different. So waiting periods across different models are different. For example, for Ardika it is much larger, XL6, the CNG models, etc. The waiting period is a little more. So our endeavor would be to make production going forward up to the festive season and beyond, to try to make our production in accordance with the underlying demand pattern that we are observing in our pending bookings. So therefore, we do hope to make this production higher according to the demand and try to deliver as many vehicles as possible.
Crude oil prices have cooled down and commodity prices have also cooled down. So do you think there is a room for Maruti Suzuki to not increase prices and rather give more relief, discounts or more strategic incentives to the consumers?
So actually the incentive to the consumer in terms of sales promotion is basically a equation of supply and the gap between supply and demand. I would expect not very high sales promotion levels because the demand, because it's reflected in the pending bookings, is higher than the supply. For some models it's possible, of course, where the supply could be more than the demand, but otherwise I would expect a muted sales discounts in this season. That's one. Second, on your question of the other question about whether the commodity price is cooling off and is there a possibility of giving relief on the price front. The answer to my mind, although we keep on examining the price situation and the cost situation almost on a daily basis, I think the commodity price is still high, even though there has been some cooling off. If you compare the commodity prices with what it was 2 years back, then the commodity price is still very high. I give you an example of steel. It was 37 rupee per kg. It went up to 84. It's still around that 65, 68 rupees a kg. So it's still very high when you compare it with 2 years back. And last 2 years we have increased prices, but not as much as what has been the increase in the commodity price.